All right, Rabotai, Shana Tova, first of all, to everybody. In the Parashat, this is Parashat Vayelech. So in the cycle of the Parashiot that we read, there are years in which Parashat Nitzavim and Vayelech are together, and there are years that are being read separately, depends on the if it's Shana Me'uberet or not. And one of the reasons for that is that the Jewish calendar really adapted itself to changes that occur throughout the year in order for the cycle of the Parashiot will end up exactly at Shmini Atzeret. And that's the most common minhag that we accomplished. There were other minhagim on that. There were places, I mean, we're talking about a few thousand years back, that they would read it once in 3 years. There wasn't, but everybody does it like this, and that's the day, of course, Simchat Torah, when we celebrate Simchat Torah. And it's a day that, according to the Kabbalah, is the end of what we call Rosh Hashanah. It's one big holiday, Rosh Hashanah. That's Aleph de Tishrei, where the year really starts, and the whole connection, the spiritual connection of the Tefillah of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim and then Sukkot, and then start to really fulfill. That's why we daven that day, Tfilat HaGeshem. Geshem mean Hagshama. Le'hagshim is to kind of materialize, fulfill, and that is to basically to execute. So that's why we do Morid HaGeshem. Of course, we're talking about different cycles between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Yisrael in terms of Birkat HaShanim. But Birkat HaGeshem is said right then. Aseret Yemei Teshuvah are the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And these are very, very special days in which the main focal point of these days is to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And maybe the essence of the whole concept of what we're talking about Teshuvah is coming back to your original form that we were beforehand. Of course, we're talking about the form of the Neshama that is really a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Nitzotz, Chelek Nitzotz Eloah Mimal, and to really give us an opportunity to be what we could be and what we haven't accomplished in the year before. So that's your chance. We spoke a little bit about this in the morning today, but that's your chance. So Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, there is this special merit of the beginning of the year to really being able to calibrate everything, regardless of all your failures and all the pain that you had suffered over the year or the past year, and to really rejuvenate yourself and fulfill yourself with this spiritual light that comes inside of us. The Rambam in Halachot Shubah, Perek
Yud
Bet. Halacha
Yud Daled
Vav wrote, and I'm quoting, Afal Pishat Shuvah ve'atza'aka yafa le'olam. Doing teshuvah and crying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always good. Ba'asara yamim sheben Rosh Hashanah ve'Yom Kippurim, those 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim, היא יפה ומתקבלת, right? It's the right thing to do. It's the appropriate thing to do, and it gets accepted immediately. Excuse me. So if you know that you veered from where you should have been or what you should have done throughout the year, and you do the tshuva appropriately this zman, that tshuva mitkabelet miyad. That's from the Rambam, shene'emar yidreshu et Hashem be'imatzo. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here, so therefore you darshan Hashem, you ask Him, so you get it. However, later on in this halacha, the Rambam writes that this rule applies only to the individual, for individual people. But he writes, אבל הציבור, כל זמן שעושים תשובה וצועקים בלב שלם, if the congregation makes teshuvah together and they pray in one heart, הם נענים, they're being answered, שנאמר, כה השם אלוקינו אמר, בכל קראנו אליו. Whatever we're going to call upon him, but that's in plural, so therefore we see how important it is to have a supportive community, how important it is to have a proper community that would support you in the process of self-fix-up or self-fulfillment. Everybody wants to run away from New York, and I understand why. I don't know where people run now in Florida, but as I said to you before many times, before you choose a place to move to, leave your politics to the side and look at what the community has to offer you in terms of support and so on. That's the most important thing, not how big your house is and how much taxes does the lunatic governor gives you and so on. So this Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is called either Shabbat Teshuvah, or Shabbat Shuva. Depends if you're Sephardi or Ashkenazi. And the reason for the first name is of course clear, because we're supposed to make Tshuva, but the other one, the name comes from the Haftarah that we read in Sefer Hosea. And it says, Shuva Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha ki kashalta be'avoncha. You have to come back to God. Shuva mishum, to come back to God. And in other words, the Navi Hosea is calling upon Am Yisrael to come back to their original state of purity that they were before, in which they abandoned because they failed. And so therefore you see the going off the derech, right, veering away from Torah and mitzvot, is basically a failure. I don't care how much money is in your bank, but if you're not shomer Torah and mitzvot, you're a failure. And that's the ultimate goal. Now, in the Gemara in Masechet Yoma, there is this passage, a story about Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says, "Gdolat tshuva shezedonot naasot lo keshgagot." Reish Lakish says that things that he did on purpose, averot, or call it sins, I don't know, whatever you want. I don't want to call it sins. Sounds too Christian to me. Averot that he did deliberately, he knew that this is okay, deliberately. If he did the tshuva meleah, naasot lo keshgagot. It's like he was mistaken. He didn't, So of course it's like, it's much more lenient. Shene'emar and so on and so forth. Amar Reish Lakish, gdolat tshuva shezedonot naasot lo kezachuyot. And there is another statement that zadonot become like a schut, like an avera becomes a mitzvah, right? So therefore, the Gemara says it's how is it possible? One time you tell me that zedonot, something that you did on purpose, becomes like something that was done accidental. And the other statement that Reish Lakish is making is something that you did on purpose becomes like a mitzvah. So how is this possible? The Gemara says lo kashya. This is not a problem. Kan me'ahava, kan mi'yirah. When you're making tshuva mi'ahava, I could have done this. I love you so much. I know how much you love me. I'm sorry. That becomes a mitzvah. And that's something that you really have to work hard. It's very, I did tshuva mi'ahava. No, you did tshuva mi'yirah because you don't want to get whacked. If you did tshuva mi'ahava, it will be very hard for you to fall again. And that's something that we all have to take. Now, Reish Lakish says when a person does an avodah ruchanit, right? When you're doing a spiritual work, and he therefore comes back b'tshuva, those zedonot, those things that he did on purpose, becomes to shgagot. In other words, they go down one level in the koach of tshuva. And then, of course, we said that it becomes averot. And what the Gemara is doing is basically take those statements and makes it into one reality. And we need to understand what does it mean. The Mekubalim in Kabbalah, they call tshuva mi'ira, tshuva, repentance that a person does because of fear. They call it tshuva tata, the lower type of teshuva. And tshuva that is this kind of a tshuva, this tshuva me'ira, it could be issue of external thing. Could be fear, could be I don't know, whatever else you want. But it's not really the superior way to do so. And with this kind of tshuva, you do have the ability to turn things around. In other words, things that you did on purpose, deliberately bad, and that will be considered. It's almost like a plea bargaining, right? We're going to reduce your sentence from, let's say, I don't know what, first-degree murder to manslaughter. Okay, so that's called tshuva me'ira. So it has the ability to change. However, tshuva ila'ah, when a person makes the tshuva ila'ah, he shows tremendous desire to connect back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That desire to come back to attach himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called superior repentance in Lashon HaKabbalah. And it has an ability, but what I'm telling you now, it's fantastic. Of course, not because I said it, but it's a fantastic idea. This is something that maybe you could understand through I don't know, quantum physics or something, quantum mechanics. When a person does tshuva mi'ahava, repentance from love, in other words, he wants to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because when you do an averah, when you do an averah, there's a separation. He realizes that he can't live like this, and he wants to use some kind of a self-propelled booster to put them into an orbit straight into collision with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I mean, to connect with him, not against, but connect, to merge with him, to fuse with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This kind of spiritual process has an ability, and listen to what Resh Lakish is saying, is able to change the past. Right, you could call it time traveling, you could call it whatever you want. Has the ability to change the past. You could change anything that you did deliberately, but now you're coming with such a koach. Everything that you did wrong, it's not that it's not. No, it's okay, Tatale, you're good. Not that becomes maaseh mitzvah somewhere in the past. That becomes maaseh mitzvah. This is an amazing concept. Amazing concept. And that's not something that we should take so lightly. And I don't think that's something that any of us, could afford to give up or to skip. Guys, everybody's messed up. But you could change the past. Everybody tell you it's impossible. Comes Resh Lakish to tell you, of course it's possible. Of course it's possible. I mean, when it's to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, if you 60 years old and all of a sudden realize that you want to be a 100 meter dash Olympian, well, that you cannot change the past. You give it up. You give it up. Stop shaking the table. You're done. Yeah.
This only applies to a verot that you did between you and Hashem.
Yeah, I mean, chas v'shalom, a person kills somebody.
No matter how much you regretted, how much
you can't bring it back. There is the Gemara in Chagiga does talk about something that's called meuvat she'eno yachol leitaken, right? If you did something that could not be fixed, there are different processes of fix-up. There's Yom Kippurim mechaper, there's Yisurim mechaper, there's Mitah mechaper, but the tshuva is pending on that. I mean, but you changed the past.
You can't change that past.
But why are you going to bring the person back? Chaz v'sholom, if a person went with the Neshet Ish, right, now you can't ever fix it, because she's asura to the husband forever. You can't fix that. But yes, to that it is. So, in other words, it has the ability to turn darkness into light, bitter to sweet, and so on and so forth. And that is the tremendous ability that this Shabbat upcoming Shabbat holds within itself. Rabotai, this is a most powerful time, and I don't think you should take it so lightly and give it up or let it pass by the, vapor of alcohol. Use the special koach of the Shabbat. Now there is an expression that they say in Yiddish that it's called Edel Yid. No Edel Yid, Yid, right? We'll get to the Yid later on. You see, maybe it fits. It's Edel Yid. Edel means gentle, gentle Jew. Or in English, we always say to appreciation to somebody, he's a gentleman. Today, you can't say gentleman. I say you have to say gentle it. I don't know, whatever you have to say. But gentleman is a compliment that we give a person on his behavior and his refinements. Of course, for us, gentle always being associated with something that is soft, that it's weak, and so on and so on. But that's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Chazal tell us, or rabbis tell us, that when you get excited, that rigush, excitement, is the fitting of the light into the vessel. When you're excited with something, that is, we call it in Kabbalah, hitlabshut ha'or bakli. Now, when the light comes, that we feel something spiritual, right? We feel something moving inside of us. And that's something spiritual. That's why the will, when you have ratzon, the will creates the vessel, right? And we see it from Maaseh Bereshit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted, and then the world was created. The same thing with us. So pay attention. The will builds the kli. And the effort of a man, whether it's conscious or subconscious, is to really receive that enlightenment to his will in order to really feel lemale et hakli, to feel the vessel. And we feel the vessel in order to receive that satisfaction in a place that is a lack of satisfaction. Now, there's a famous Rolling Stones song. It says, I can get no satisfaction. And I try, and I try, and I try. I can't get no satisfaction. The reason, and there is a reason, by the way, Kabbalistic reason, why this song, that at least this line, is very interesting and applicable to us. Remember, I can't get no satisfaction, and I try, and I try, and I try. So therefore, a person has a need to satisfy, because he wanted something, that will created a vessel. That vessel needs to be filled with a light. And that's what I try, I want to. But there is a certain blockage. Now, and of course, maybe by using this concept you could understand when we say what Chazal tells us, "Bederech she'adam rotzeh lalechet molechim oto." In the place that a man wants to go, that's where he's being led. In other words, ata rotzeh, you want to go there. In other words, when you want something, you create a vessel. Now, this vessel should be satisfied. How is it being satisfied? By filling it with appropriate light. So what do you want? And that you can understand what David HaMelech says. Ever katan yesh bo ba'adam, mar'ivo, masbi'o, mar'ivo. Right? What do you want? And that's where your mind is going to be there. Like as they say, you're a one-track person, a one-track mind. And that's where you're going to be obsessed with all day long, because the more you think about something, the more you desire it. Why am I desiring it? What's wrong with me? I desire it because my will created a vessel, and that vessel is empty, and it needs to be filled. So now, of course, what is that you want, boys and girls? That's why the enlightenment that comes for a will, or that was created by a will, therefore that satisfaction has to fit it exactly, balanced and fitted to fulfill that lack of satisfaction. That's why when there is no corresponding, when it doesn't fit the vessel to the light, there is lack of balance. When I'm being torn inside, I want something, but I can't do this, there is lack of balance, and then things explode. It has to fit exactly. Now, that lack of balance, because there is a lack of balance, that causes now or creates a certain way, a certain path to really satisfy itself until it reaches the place of balance. I wanted something, I feel something is missing, so now I need to fill it up, and I need to fill it up, and I need to fill it up. And the more unbalanced I become, the more I desire to fill it up. The problem is not the desire. The problem is what is that you wanted, and by doing so, creating the vessel that is empty. One way to stop it is to want good things, not to want bad things. And it doesn't make a difference if it's on sale, or you just got it off the boat in China, or you got it free. If you want something that it's not good, it will create you a tremendous imbalance, because the whole world, the whole universe was created with good intent. So when you want good things, the light fits it exactly and creates a balance. And then you build a building that you can actually be proud of. But when you're creating things that could not be satisfied, or they are bad, or they are harmful to other people, and so on and so forth, the light, which is good, cannot fit into the clay. And then there is an imbalance. And then you need more. And then you need more. And then all your life you want something, and you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be satisfied. And you can try, and you can try, and you can try. So the problem with the Rolling Stones is that they will, and what the good didn't fit. And they kept on going on a vicious cycle of imbalance, to the point that I don't have to tell you how much they were involved with drugs and so on and so forth. Why do you think people want drugs? People want drugs, people want all these things because there is a certain sense of chaos in their lives. Empty vessels. And understanding that, to be good is very simple. You don't understand. To do the right thing is easy. To do the wrong thing, that's hard. That takes effort. It will drain you. I mean, so in Chas v'Shalom, to be a person, we call it a sinner, To be a bad person, that's unnatural, and that takes a lot of bad. However, we have a choice, but it creates a big chaos in your life, and an effort, and it will drain you. And it's something that, if you think about it, you said, there's something here. Easier to do the right thing. Now, let's say, for example, let's say, for example, there is a lack of fitting, or lack of appropriation between the vessel and the light, and we keep on we keep on creating more and we're wanting more and more and more. So therefore, what happens is that balance will come or the light will come in what we call levush gashmi. So when there is lack of feeding, and I need to feed it all the time, in order to create that kind of a balance, I need something that is very, very earthy, gashmi, earthy. And I will become a egocentric person. There's a difference between id and yid. You are becoming completely id. I want it, and I want it now. I can't wait. I want it, and I want it now. And the more you want it, the worse it gets. The more you can live without it. So you really got to be out of your mind to live life on a balance. Now, let's say for example, a person that feels lack of balance, and as a result of that, he has a little downslope. He's going down a little bit. In other words, he's a little, I wouldn't say depressed, because depressed has, we have a psychology and stuff, so you have to be very careful. How long did you experience those things? But he feels a little down. So all of a sudden he's going to find himself doing what when he's depressed? He's get himself a nice chocolate, or maybe like ice cream. He's going to binge at night. He's going to, chocolate is good, nice dark chocolate. Or ice cream. I don't like ice cream, right? And why? Because he wants that sweetness to actually sweeten his life. And that's why a person needs to think about, each and every one of us, what is your chocolate? What is your ice cream? What's your fix? And those fixes that you're looking for indicate lack of balance. Because what happens is, you live life that is not balanced, you're not satisfied, is emptiness, there's no meaning in your life, so therefore you need a certain drip of dopamine into your brain. Easiest way to do so, be spontaneous, if you know what I mean. Have a little chocolate, have a little ice cream, and hopefully daddy would not find you, if you know what I mean. It's a state of mind. That external sweetener is not going to sweeten your life. It's just going to make it worse. And the same thing in our society. Since we live very unspiritual, unbalanced life. Everybody today smokes pot. Everyone. You know how bad it is smoking pot for you? Everybody wants to have sex. So therefore the government cannot have you enough sex. So they're going to make you soon make love to trees. I don't know, what's coming down next on the pipe? These are all indication of something really bad that is happening to us spiritually as individuals, and as individuals who make our society. This immediate gratification shows a certain state of internal chaos, where the vessel doesn't fit the light, and the light doesn't fill the vessel. Now we need to start making things up. Each and every one of us has his own chocolate, has his own ice cream, has his own fix. Tell me what your fix is, and I'll tell you what you need to fix. Now, when it says, Vayelech Moshe in our parasha, the Zohar asks, Me'efo ve'le'an halach Moshe? From where and to where is Moshe going? And Zohar explains that the departure, or lechto shel Moshe, when Moshe is going, it's like sunset. It's like the process when the sun sets. Sunset brings the night, and together with the night comes darkness, and everything else is associated with darkness. And after the departure of Moshe, the period right after that is considered to be night. So after 40 years, when Moshe Rabbeinu led Am Yisrael in the desert and brought them to levels of miracles and to levels of divine revelations, into highest possible spiritual levels that, of course, were not known in the world until that point. And unfortunately, after also. So the Zohar says that the sun has to set down in order to allow the moon to shine, to grow, to glow. So when the moon is represented to Yeshua and Am Yisrael, that now could continue or could have the ability to actually shine their own light, to take an initiative and to execute what Moshe Rabbeinu had taught them. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised Moshe that his light is going to continue shining and shining over the world. And how is it going to be? Through the moon. The light that we see on the moon is basically a reflection from the light of the sun. Then in the darkest night, it actually, I don't know if you've ever been into a place that there's no light pollution. I have, many times. And on a full night, you could be amazed at how much you could actually see. And on a moonless light, you could be amazed how much you can see. I remember one time I was in the desert in Sinai before they gave it back. And it was one of those nights, was a moonless night. And it was a little bit overcast as well. And you couldn't see even the stars. And I'm telling you, I had a hard time seeing my own hands stretched out like this. It was dark. So in order for us not to get lost, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows the light of Moshe. I remember last week we spoke about the light of the tzaddik to continue shining in this world. So the Zohar says that as we said, that when the moon shines at night, there's basically the light of the sun that continues shining on the world, but uses the moon as a reflector on it. And because it says in the Sefer Dvarim, Ki ata tavo, Ki ata tavi. So what's the connection between ata tavo, you will come, le'ata tavi, you will bring? So this is the light of Moshe Rabbeinu that is going to continue to shine the world until, Rabotai, we finish the tikkun and the Mashiach will come, the Mashiach will come, and then is going to bring an end to the darkness. And darkness means also mainly spiritual darkness that we add, and to the suffering. So many people get very depressed and they say it's so dark outside you can't see anything. And don't forget, being outdoorsmen that you are, you know that at the darkest point of the night, that's where the morning starts. So if we are now in a dark place, I sure hope that it doesn't get darker than that, because morning is just right around the corner. And there's nothing, I think, that it's more rejuvenating than to see the morning coming up. When I see the morning, when I see how dawn breaks, I cannot stop myself from thinking about the first morning in creation of the world. It's the same thing. And I'm saying how glorious it is. There's a beautiful song by Cat Stevens, which I don't like him, but it's called Morning is Broken. So you should listen to it, even though he changed his name not to Yusuf Islam. But it's a beautiful song. Listen to it. So, not now, of course. So, and that's the light which is going to bring the Geulah, redemption, and really going to be able to really, in full blast, bring about the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu and all his life, as the Zohar says in Parashat Vayelech over there. In Parashat Vayelech, we have 3 psukim that are corresponding with the Lamed, with the large Lamed of Parashat Nitzavim, and the connection to the Lamed, right, that according to Sefer Yetzirah, created the Mazal of Moznaim, created the astrological sign of Libra, which is Chodesh Tishrei. The letter Lamed is the only letter, Hebrew letter, that goes above the line. Most of them are within the line. Some go below the line. That's the only one that goes above the line. The line in terms of of writing, and that lift or going over the line up to the top symbolizes the chibur, the connection of it to the upper world. So this month, Chodesh Tishrei and Mazal Moznaim is actually indicates that kind of a connection, and the connection to Olam Haba and to the Sfera of Binah, that from that we get the life for next year. Moshe represents for us, inside of us, that element of internal balance. That's what Moshe is. And remember, we spoke about last week about HaKadosh Baruch Hu that makes the bread with Am Yisrael through Moshe. So Moshe represented us this balance. Now, Rabotai, the word balance in Hebrew, or in Hebrew, is called izun. However, how do I get to this internal balance? I get to the internal balance if I'm going to look, for example, a hint for that in Gematria. Internal balance in Hebrew will be izun pnimi, internal balance. The Gematria is 264. The same Gematria as Seder, in other words, order. If you want to have internal balance, it starts with having an order. That you know what you need to do in every given moment. You know why you're doing it. Everything is organized. You don't live life of chaos. When you're living life of chaos, you are creating an opportunity for failure. When you are organized, you can create balance. If you take the word seder and mix up the words, you get the word daras. Daras means to trample over. Therefore, if you don't have order in the right order, you're going to be run over. You want internal balance? Start with being organized. Organized means getting up in the morning, every day, at the same time. Knowing what you're doing in every given... there is time for spontaneous things, but fit it within your 24 hours. But you need to know what you're doing, otherwise you're going to get nowhere. Life is going to trample you over. It's going to run you over. When we have an animal that is a drusa, it becomes treifa. The treifa in a chaya. A treifa does not live. So a person that does not have order in his life is not considered to be life. Existence, but not life. You need to start with that. When you're creating order, you can start building appropriately. You know what you want. You know why you want it. You know for what reason. Do I really need it? Then you could fill it up. But when you don't do it, it's a chaos. And year goes in, year goes out, and you're not staying in the same place. You're going backwards. Because life goes ahead. You're going backwards. You ain't going nowhere. Just like a dead person that doesn't go anywhere, so are you. But I'm alive. You're right, you're a zombie. You're not going anywhere. Rabotai, I cannot emphasize enough that when you do so, they can fit the appropriate light to the vessels. You could create things. It's like when you start building a building. You don't start from the roof and then you build the foundation. You build yourself up slowly. There's a plan, there's a scheme, and so on and so forth. So Moshe represents completion for us, wholeness for us, what we call emunah shlema, the whole, the true belief. And a person that is in a state of balance and not of ups and downs and so on and so forth, like Yeshua, right? And Yeshua, we say, Adam shelo mashmi ohala shel Torah. He never moved from Torah. He was in Bet Medrash all the time. Really represents us the appropriate feeling, the appropriate regesh, appropriate feeling that really spreads out from the feeling to the ratzon, to the will, to the creation of the vessels, and then to a balance. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu, right, was the light. He guided him, but he gave him the model. And therefore Yeshua is the one who's able to bring Am Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael. That's why if you let your emunah, when you know what right is, what is wrong, if you let your emunah guide you, and not the sechel, the brain that tells you, it's okay, Tato, like, you know what, you really suffered a lot. You know, you have some unresolved issues. It's okay for you to mess up. And he says, no! Whatever happened, happened. But that's wrong, and homie, don't do that. I don't do it. No! When you are guided by your emunah, and not by the impulsiveness of your sechel, that by some of us is very little, when you're guided by your emunah, you're able to control what the sechel produces, which the sechel wants, immediate and quick fix, immediate gratification without any effort. And it doesn't work like that. Yagata umatzata ta'amin. The emunah, if you work hard, you would find. Then you believe in that. The emunah also comes biyegiyah. You have to work hard on your emunah. Emunah is not something that you're born with it. It's something you have to acquire. And you have to the yagata. Then you have to do matzata. Then you have to look for it. Then ta'amin. Then you have an emunah. So, if we're going to allow the emunah and therefore reach a level of sipuk, of satisfaction that comes from a high place, from a ratzon to do the right thing, that really nourishes and gets its nourishment from the roots of the truth, only then you can bring the light of Sinai to the vessel of Eretz Yisrael. That's why in Eretz Yisrael have to be truthful. It's in order to merit the zchut to go to Eretz Yisrael, you have to be truthful. You have to live truthful life. So Rabotai, a lot of work. Today is Thursday, actually Friday, but it's Thursday. You have tomorrow a whole entire day to prepare yourself for Shabbat. Shene'emar, mi shetarach be'erev Shabbat, yochal b'Shabbat. You want to enjoy the spiritual fruits of this Shabbat? Spend your day tomorrow about what we spoke today. Try to make an order into your life. Try to be more truthful about your life. And b'zchut zeh, you're going to create an appropriate vessel and a light. Shabbat Shalom.